Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. How is everyone? We've got a ton of people here already. Miss Dawn. Well, welcome to the channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Elizabeth, and I am your friendly hillbilly host. And this is Hillbilly Crime. Sweet Tater had a singing lesson at 7 o'clock, so she will try and join us a little bit later. But everybody come on in. Extreme Blonde, one of our new mods. Thank you so much. And so tonight, we are going to look at, the case with Mickey Stines and Judge Kevin Mullins. And we're also going to kind of look at the other case that we've been kind of dipping into, the search warrant at the wrong address. We're going to kind of just look at how that situation's going and just see, is this hillbilly justice? Or is it organized crime? How much does it have to be before they start looking at these supposed justice circles as organized crime? If there's a lot of profit going on in that higher up inner circle, in certain courthouses, isn't that organized crime? But we're going to look at it and see what everybody thinks and see what everybody's opinion on all this is. We've got Tanya Levine. Hey, everyone. Scorpio Girl 53. Mert, hello. And we've got some really exciting news too, y'all. Now I didn't know, forgive me, but I was not familiar with Turtle Island, but apparently, hillbilly crime has gotten on Turtle Island. I'm not really sure, if we've been voted off yet or not, but, and then tomorrow night at 7, I'm going to go on Surviving the Survivor. And then at 9, we'll go on Court TV with Vinny. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up, y'all. My goodness. Thank you to everybody who voted for Hillbilly Crime. That was just surprising. I didn't think that we had that many fans, but we do. So that's wonderful. All right. So, yes, that's a big deal, isn't it? Oh, yes. All right. So let me pull this up. We're going to watch a couple TikToks that have the body cam footage in it, and we found another piece of body cam from that day. So let's listen to this, and then we're gonna watch a couple things.
Courthouse. I got emergency at the courthouse. I need ambulance here right now.
Which courthouse?
Court, Letcher County.
And what's going on?
Judge has been shot.
We got to get a crime scene all started.
I go up to my staff. I got them in the kitchen back there, or not. You'd rather not go through.
Yeah,
If you'll give us just
was
a minute.
you in there, Mike? Was you there in there?
No, I was at my office. I didn't know anything about it until Michael called me.
If you want to call them,
Yeah,
tell them
if
that
you
they're
don't care,
okay.
Okay.
Just tell them to hang tight and we'll
Okay.
come up there and get them.
I've talked to them.
Okay.
I talked to Adam.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I talked to Adam.
Okay.
Let's
Thanks,
get, yes, sir. You want to do tape? I've got some tape.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Let me get some tape.
And just to stop this and let you know who that is, that man there in the blue pants and the tie, that is Jamie Hatton. He's the county attorney. He is the one that supposedly was the prosecutor on the Patrick Little case. The newspaper said he was the one that was appointed special prosecutor who negotiated that plea. But when we got the public records request back, it said that Matt Butler had assigned one of his assistant attorneys as special prosecutor for that case. But it was dated and signed way after the plea deal was even signed. So, but that's who that is.
Oh, yeah, that little.
That looks like Don McCall, but I'm not sure if that's who that is or not. But that's who that looks like. And then we're going to see Mike Watts, Sr., our circuit court clerk. He's the one that's there on the other side of the street that's going to be walking over. I love Mike. Mike is a good dude.
I'll scoot that down. Yeah, scoot that down. That thing's wanting to flop anyway.
That's Mike Watts right there.
Could you grab me one of them cones? I'm gonna say one of them cones right here. I'm gonna run it down through here. If we got something else, we might need something else to set it on down there. No, we're not. I think they said to set there for traffic, but Mason's got his pothole there. Yeah, I'll probably need to get that one and set it on down here.
Okay. And then let me stop sharing that. And then we're going to watch the other body cam footage too on here. Just to kind of get everybody caught back up. All right, let me share it again.
I can't get up in there. Come on now. I can't. Yeah, man. I can't get in. These cuffs are way too tight. Come on now, guys. Come on now.
Stines definitely sounds a little paranoid.
You mean pick your leg up, my brother?
Y'all got carbon monoxide in here. Come on now.
I want to stop this and point something out that several of you guys have written to me and asked me about this. At the ceiling, you see up in the ceiling of the Sally Port, all those holes that are in the ceiling. Well, many people have asked me why all this money that they've gotten from the flood money, from the opioid settlement money, from the forfeiture funds, why have they not fixed the holes in the ceiling of the jail? Well, I have no answer for that. First of all, I have no answer for that. But there are several businesses that operate in Letcher County that their ceilings have looked like that ever since the very first time I've ever walked in their store. So there are a whole lot of buildings in Letcher County that look like that. The Letcher County Jail is one of the worst kept jails. I mean, it's awful. I had said before, the one night that I stayed down there, the sink in the room was broken. And, you know, it's a sink and toilet, one piece together. And there was a constant stream of water that came out of the sink. And I was like, are they going to fix that? Is it broken? And the girls that were all in there, who had been in there for 6 months or longer, said that it had been that way ever since they had been there. So my question was, and nobody had even tried to fix it, who paid that water bill that whole time? I'm sure it's probably fixed by now. That was like in 2018. But, you know, stuff like that is not a priority on people's lists around here.
Come on now. Come on. I can't say it like this. I can't. Come on now. Be fair to me.
We're being good to you, brother.
That's another good question.
Come on now, guys. Please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. Please.
You want to scoot on over a little bit to the left?
Come on now.
Try to scoot on over a little bit more. That way we don't hit you. Can you go a little bit farther? I just want to hit you with the door. Put your knee in there, my friend.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Bates. Hey, Bates. Can we loosen this up a little or give the window down?
I'm sorry.
We're also going to look at Jason Bates. I have gotten some information about some of the law enforcement officers that we've got here, just how many departments they've went through. And we're going to try and dig up their service records to see how many departments they've been fired from, or were they given the option to resign. And so we're going to be digging into stuff like that too, y'all.
Can we loosen this up a little? Be fair to me, man.
I got some air. I'll crack the window for you, but I can turn the air on back here. Okay?
Yeah. Be fair to me now.
I promise. Yeah, I promise.
God, please.
I promise. I'll tell you.
It's hot, man.
I also want to say something. I'm going to stop that real quick. One of the things that surprised me a whole lot with the aftermath of that incident that happened at the courthouse is that none of these people are, you know, they were good friends and coworkers with this man. Wouldn't the normal human reaction be like, Mickey, what in the world would you do that for? Man, what's going on? I mean, wouldn't you think? I know that police officers are supposed to be trained to, you know, hold their emotions and da-da-da-da-da. But they're still human beings. You know, you can't kind of have it both ways. You can't say, oh, well, they're human beings and they make mistakes, but then not have that same argument when we talk about stuff like that. Exactly. They're human beings. So they are just as open to temptation, to bribery, to any kind of theft.
Back here, man. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Come on now, guys. Make sure I get to the jail. Come on now, guys.
I was asking why you done it. Was it over your family?
Come on now, guys. What are you doing?
I just talking to you.
It's like they're scared.
Was it something to do with your family or anything like that?
The trooper, after several minutes, tries to ask Stines some more questions.
Was it something to do with your family?
They're not asking him more questions. They're asking him the exact same question over and over again.
Something happened. If something did happen, you know, I mean, it'd be good to let us know. Why did you want to talk to your daughter a while ago, Nick? Something did happen that, you know, involved something, and they could help you when you go to trial and get a fair trial. Let us know kind of what's going on, what led to this. Maybe we're almost to the jail. Last one last time. Is there anything you want? Is this anything to do with your family?
What do you guys think about them that guy continuing to ask that question? We've still not heard Mickey himself say they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid. We've not seen that or heard that, not the first time yet, even though that is what was reported. But according to this body cam footage, it's the police officers that keep asking that question. It's like they're trying to lead him to say something. But at the same time, they kind of, to me, they seem like they're scared of the answer that he's going to give. But that's just me.
That we need to know.
I mean, it's not like this happens every day, right? I mean, you'd think that they would be so much more animated. But like I said, that's just my take on it. And
what the information comes out, that always can change how investigations are worked. You know what I mean? And how they're looked at. You know that. Like I said, something led to this.
Come on now, guys.
Do
Guys, no guys.
To the jail. See it right there.
This is not the jail.
Yeah.
This is not the jail now. This is not the jail.
Okay, Mickey. Anyway, so do you want to talk about it? Is this to do with anything with your family, your daughter, or anything?
Bring it on in.
They have to back out to get out, or does that circle out?
Does it circle out or do they get out?
Okay. So,
Who you passing me off to?
Leslie, we talked about this. This is Leslie County Jail.
Who you passing me off to, though?
No.
Nobody. He knows the way here. We didn't know the way.
Oh, yeah. Y'all are passing me off here now to somebody.
Mickey, I don't know why you think this.
Y'all are going to let somebody hurt me.
I just find it so strange. You're going to let somebody hurt me after what he just did. You know, like where is the shock and the surprise from anybody? Even Mickey himself. You know, if I did something, or I've done things before, and I've been like, man, why did I do that? You know, and I've just kicked myself in the butt.
Yeah. Come on now, guys. Be fair.
I hope you will be.
Yeah. Don't pass me off to nobody.
The only people we're passing you off to is the jailers inside here.
Just do
Okay.
that.
That's the jail.
They said there's somebody in there that they got to clear out.
Yeah, come on now, guys.
Is this anything to do with your family? I think that's some information that would be nice to be out there so we knew what exactly led to this.
Don't put me in that Leslie County van. Y'all gonna leave?
All right. That was the end of that one. Now, one of these shows that Ned Pillersdorf has been on is Surviving the Survivor. That's one of the ones that I'm going to go on tomorrow. But they had Ned on there the other day, and he gave a lot more detail and information about the Ben Fields, the civil suit, and how the deposition went with Mickey. And so I put a link to this episode of Surviving the Survivor in the description of this video. So if you guys want to go and listen to the whole thing or watch the whole thing, I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's so long, but I want you guys to be able to hear what Ned says. Oh,
building up pretty rapidly now. She's right there in Letcher County.
Yeah, and she was, she is investigating this case. Ned, just back to you for a minute. She calls the sheriff because I was watching Gavin's interview with her today on Gavin's channel, which is Gavin Fish, Fish, like the creature. But Ned, to you, she's calling him Mickey and calling the judge Kevin. How well did you know these two people?
Well, I knew Miss Jones. She was my client. I was familiar with Judge Mullins. I realized he is deceased, but my experience with him as part of my representation of Sabrina Atkins, and due to one hearing in which I asked him to recuse, I basically declined to go back to Judge Mullins' court. It was actually related to this. To put it in context, I represented Sabrina Atkins and another woman who is now deceased. They basically alleged that the deputy named Ben Fields was sexual extortion to have sex with him. They were an ankle bracelet. Sabrina actually, we alleged in the civil rights lawsuit we filed that she actually was forced to have sex in the judge's chambers with the bailiff Ben Fields, who has since, by the way, pled guilty to at least sexual extortion of 3 different women. And what happened with myself and Judge Mullins was, when I first filed the civil case, it was before the criminal case started, the lawsuit we filed was pretty sweeping and was a pretty damning, I guess, indictment of the Letcher County officials. I will add that they've denied the allegations. But I did ask Judge Mullins to recuse. They actually charged Sabrina with bail jumping when she cut off the sex. And the quid pro quo was, you don't have to pay the $300 to $350 a month for the ankle bracelet if you have sex with me. And at one point, they actually pimped her out to one of his friends. And so actually, they charged Sabrina with bail jumping. And I appeared in front of Judge Mullins on the felony bail jumping charge, and I asked him to recuse. And he reluctantly did so, but it was an uncomfortable hearing. And after that, I basically declined to go back to his court.
We're gonna circle back because Ned just put a lot out there, and again, this client of his could be a very key witness. Was the second client who's now deceased, is that Jennifer Hill?
That's correct. She died after we filed the lawsuit.
And she also alleged that the same deputy, Ben Fields, coerced her to having sex, this time in his cruiser or his car.
I would also think that they would go back and reinvestigate Jennifer Hill's death just to make sure that there wasn't any foul play with that, because we know how dangerous rugs are today. And we also see all the time on the news how people are intentionally being OD'd. So I would think that they would go back and reopen that and just investigate and make sure there wasn't no foul play with that. But I haven't heard.
That's correct. And it was a third woman who's not in the lawsuit. The reason we know what happened was that was part of the indictment Fields pled guilty to.
All right, so let's go back to what we know. This is you heard Ned say it, straight out of a John Grisham novel, really a sordid tale, disturbing. I don't want to play the video, but I hope this isn't the video. Let's see here. Yeah, this is just the shot here. And it's interesting. And one thing I learned in listening to Gavin's show is there's still smoking allowed in this courthouse. And if you look, not to make light of it, but if you look at Judge Kevin Mullins' right hand, you can see he's got a cigarette butt between his index finger and middle finger. Now, this is just moments before, obviously, Mickey Stines, the sheriff, has words with Judge Mullins and then pumps 8 rounds into him, killing him. This is literally the last moments of his life. Jamie Wallace with a comment here talking about Ned. That's the best lawyer in Eastern Kentucky, if not the whole damn state. You can trust him with anything in your case, be it legal, civil, whatever. Ned has got your back. He's a hell of a dude. There you go. That's quite an endorsement. And I can tell that he is no nonsense right off the top. So, General, to you, what we do know here, and then we'll circle back to what we are trying to figure out. But the charges here, 1 count of murder of a public official. It is a death penalty eligible case. As I said, Sheriff Stines was Judge Mullins' bailiff for 10 years. Let's hold it right there. Death penalty eligible. I mean, he did shoot a government official, a judge here. Do you think, what's your gut tell you here? They're going to go after the death penalty in this case, or is it going to end up being some sort of insanity defense, and he might get off a bit easier than we all might think?
Well, it's possible you could see both. This is an execution of an elected judge, which is extremely serious. So I would anticipate the state is very strongly considering filing a death notice in this case. And, there can be several reasons you would do that. One, if there are aggravating factors that apply and make it death eligible, which this charge is. That's a good technical reason to do it. There are strategic reasons to do it. The video, we watched that at the preliminary hearing, and it's chilling. So this appears to be premeditated. It's obviously an execution. So I'm sure the state is giving some strong consideration to that. But at the same time, you're almost certainly going to have some discovery going on here in this case between the defense and the state. We heard what I would say was the initial beginning at the preliminary hearing of a defense of severe emotional distress based on some allegations that the judge was involved in some inappropriate relationship with the sheriff's daughter. So I think you got 2 things going on at the same time there. The defense is probably going to be trying to build up its case and share that with the state. The state, meanwhile, is going to be pressing back probably with the evidence they have that they think supports a murder conviction and possibly a death sentence.
Gavin, to you, as journalists, you and I'm kind of baffled by the fact that this happened on September 19th, and it's still very fuzzy as to what happened and what's the motive. And hopefully we'll get a little bit clearer picture with Ned here, because I have a feeling he knows obviously a lot more than the three of us do. But are you surprised that this happened on September 19th? You're looking at it right here. This is literally an absolute execution. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Yeah, surreal photo. When you think about this, he's smoking a cigarette. He will never be on this earth again, at least not in this form, right after this still shot. So are you surprised, Gavin, that this that we still don't really know why?
Yeah, I watched the preliminary hearing, and obviously, preliminary hearings are there to just basically establish probable cause to hold the case over for court, right? So it's not like the prosecution is going to put every piece of evidence out that they have, and nor have they built their entire case. Yeah, it was awfully shocking to me that there was video of the sheriff gunning down a judge in his chambers. The thing about this still shot that strikes me is that Ned's client, Ms. Adkins, she alleges in the lawsuit that they filed that she has seen video of what she called, I think she said they were upper people, or they were powerful people in the county, including by name Judge Mullins, sexually abusing basically women in his chambers. And when she was asked by the Attorney General's office what his chambers looked like, she was able to describe that quilt. It was yeah. She's an impressive person, I have to say. She's the courage and the bravery that both Ms. Hill and Ms. Adkins have displayed to bring really, really to level some serious accusations against those that are in power in Letcher County. I mean, that's an amazing amount of courage. And I think that there has been a lot of speculation, including on the stand in the preliminary hearing, about Judge Mullins having an inappropriate relationship with the daughter of Sheriff Stines. I'm not sure which way, if that's true or not. But what I do understand is that prior to this, within the day or two prior to this, Sheriff Stines was deposed in the lawsuit that Mr. Pillersdorf and his clients filed against Sheriff Stines, Deputy Sheriff Ben Fields, and the company that provided the ankle monitors. So, I mean, I think that he was under probably a lot of distress at the time.
Yeah, I want to get to the day of and back to Ned in a moment. But first, again, in this frame, you see right before 8 shots are fired into the judge. It's important to note that Kevin Mullins, the judge, he has 2 minor daughters who I'm sure are suffering. And as you just heard Gavin say, Sheriff Mickey Stines, who resigned immediately after this happened, he has a 17-year-old daughter, and there's been some talk about maybe the judge was potentially or possibly involved with that daughter. We'll get to Ned on that in a minute. But General, back to you. The defense has already publicly come out for Sheriff Mickey Stines, and they say this should be a manslaughter case, and they use the phrase extreme emotional disturbance. Are they already setting the table for either an insanity defense or a heat of the moment? What does that indicate to you?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're doing. If you look at Kentucky Code Annotated 507.030, manslaughter in the first degree, that provides that you intend to cause the death of another person, and you do so, but it does not constitute murder because you act under the influence of extreme emotional disturbance. So that's a pretty large downward departure from murder in Kentucky, which carries 20 to 50 years. Manslaughter in the first degree carries 10 to 20 years. So I think we already saw at the preliminary hearing the beginnings of this type of defense, and I'm sure they're trying to develop that through discovery and other means, communications with the state as the case progresses in a circuit court.
By the way, I got to give a shout out to Allison Adams. If you're here, you're watching, just got the little thing that you sent me, and it's a big thing, and I love it, and I will show it to STS Nation. I was going to bring it to the studio. I'll give you guys a hint. It has to do with Fred and Ethel, my two pups, and it's pretty amazing. I always say, best guest, better community, and you guys are legitimately the best community in all the YouTubes. It's not just true crime. So detectives, so the shooting obviously happened in Chambers. We're looking at this picture again. The town is Whitesburg, which is within Letcher County. It happened again back on September 19th. And then the grand jury indicted the sheriff roughly 2 months after that. Now, Ned, to you, detective, I've got a lot of questions for you, Ned. So detectives investigating the case have confirmed that Sheriff Stines did try to call his daughter on Judge Mullins' phone as well as his own phone prior to this. Do we know the time frame? Do you know anything more about the context of this?
Just the information from their preliminary hearing. And Whitesburg, even though it's a small town, they've got a really excellent newspaper, the Mountain Eagle, that does some really good reporting. You know, what I suspect is going on, I don't think they're going to go for a manslaughter, extreme emotional disturbance defense for the following reason. One, that's a 10 to 20, and because the gun was involved, you serve 85%. And basically, Stines, I'm not a criminal defense attorney. I'm not particularly sympathetic to him. I've sued him twice. But I think it's going to be more of a time to kill defense. And the reason I say that is after the preliminary hearing, Stines is represented by fine criminal defense lawyers, familiar with them. And they did make this perplexing comment that the shooting was basically that the lawsuit I was involved in was front and center to their defense, whatever those words mean. And so, I mean, there's really two schools of thought. There's no question what happened. The question is, why did he do it? Did he do it because Judge Mullins was involved in some outrageous activity? And then you have almost what we call a jury nullification defense. Or was it because Mullins was going to report Sheriff Stines for some bad activity, which
pay attention
would make the case against Sheriff Stines even that much worse? So it was perplexing where it's going. The prosecutor did call me, and it was odd. He interviewed me almost as a witness because, to put this in context, we filed a lawsuit against Ben Fields, and we named Sheriff Stines as the defendant in the theory that he knew or should have known that there was all this sexual exploitation of these ankle bracelet women going on. Right after we filed the lawsuit, the Attorney General office came and interviewed my client, and my client showed all the text messages between her and Bailiff Fields, or the guy who ran the ankle bracelet, which left no doubt there was a improper sexual relationship. Thereafter, the Attorney General's office, and I praise them for this, they did indict Fields, and eventually.
Now, here's where I'm going to stop this. Ned says he praises the Attorney General's office because they did indict Fields. But this is my problem. This is the same problem I have with patting a man on the back or woman on the back for paying child support on time. Well, so you're going to pat them on the back and praise them for doing something that they should have done anyway? If they hadn't have done it, what kind of, I mean, it would have just been a total injustice. But this is where I completely disagree with Ned on this situation. And we're going to keep talking about it.
Got a guilty plea. What happened on Monday of the week where Mullins was shot, he was shot on Thursday, Stines was in my office along with my co-counsel, and my co-counsel took the deposition, and he was acting oddly. And the prosecutor in the case, who's from another county, called me up and was inquiring as to what was Stines' demeanor. And what I have said to him and the national media, if you watch the interesting initial appearance of Stines when he was in the Leslie County Jail, it was an odd appearance before a judge. The judge asked him direct questions. There were long pauses. It was kind of tense. And it's not typical behavior for a sheriff who's been sued. I mean, I filed other civil rights lawsuits. I've sued sheriffs before, and they're usually talkative, gregarious, combative. That was not Stines' demeanor on that Monday. And when I heard the shocking news on Thursday, the first thought I had was, is this related to my lawsuit? Now, in fairness to Stines and the civil defendants, they've denied the allegations. And Stines in his deposition denied any knowledge that Fields was engaging in this sexual exploitation of these women. So that's kind of put it in context. By the way, the comment about what my client Sabrina Atkins said, when she said she saw a video of Mullins acting sexually inappropriately with apparently a female criminal defendant, that's actually not in the lawsuit. Where that came up was, and our prosecutor friend here would understand this. After we filed the civil lawsuit, they did what's called a proffer of Miss Atkins. So this is after the lawsuit's filed, but before Fields gets indicted. And what a proffer is, basically the Attorney General investigator said, all right, Miss Atkins, I'm recording this, but we want to hear everything you know. Double hearsay is okay. Rumors are okay. So that interview was recorded, and that recorded has since been put in the possession of the national media. They did an open records request to the Attorney General's office, and the reason the Attorney General's office released it is, as I've indicated, is the bailiff Fields pled guilty to several felony charges. He's actually already served his sentence and is out.
Yeah, he is out. So again, a lot on the table there, and I need to go back and break it down. The comment here from our friend LeMesa up in Toronto, I think the whole reason we're hearing almost next to nothing about this case is likely because of how many higher ups / those in power positions are linked to the S abuse, keeping it hush hush.
Exactly. If they had reason to believe that there were more people involved in this SMEX abuse, which they've already said that the way that Jennifer Hill and Sabrina got started doing this was they first heard rumors about it. Well, the rumors can't start if there's nothing taking place. So this behavior had obviously been going on before these women. Ned is just the first lawyer to file a civil suit and actually take the case. If you can't get lawyers in your area to even take your case, or if they laugh you out of their office when you do go in and try to find an attorney, where are you supposed to go? Who else could be victims of these men down in our courthouse? I mean, it's basically like they were running their own, well, Ned said it, a brothel. But the house arrest, they were running their own. To me, I don't see how this is not SMEX trafficking. Our Attorney General's office has a task force, a SMEX trafficking task force. On their website, they have the ways to recognize SMEX trafficking. How come they're not recognizing it themselves? Is my question. How come, if they're so convinced that a time to unalive defense will be used, well, then that means there had to have been something happened. Then the judge had to have been guilty, or Mickey had to at least think the judge was guilty of doing something. So where's the investigation into that? I feel like everybody's like skipping over that part.
I mean, General, speak to this. I mean, you're from a rural area of Kentucky, five counties, I believe, that you have jurisdiction over, and Ned is obviously from a somewhat rural area of Kentucky, and so you have Tennessee and Kentucky. I mean, I don't know how to ask this gently, but is the law upheld differently where everyone seems to know everybody? The judges know each other, the bailiffs know each other. I mean, this is a real small town in Letcher County. You know, is it possible that this is, number one, being kept quiet, like La Mesa is saying, because they're higher ups, or is it just such an intimate community that, you know, Judge Mullins and Sheriff Stines crossed each other's path and literally crossed each other, and that's why he turned on them?
It sounds to me like the latter is probably more accurate. You know, and yeah, we're in West Tennessee. We have a pretty rural district, probably not quite as rural as this Kentucky county, but nonetheless, you know, we take some pains to make sure that the public, our constituents, don't perceive that we treat anybody any differently when there are allegations of criminal conduct and investigations that produce evidence of that, and then charging. I would almost say, if anything, the higher up you are, maybe the less favorable prosecutor might view the case, just because of your position of trust.
And this guy, everything that he's saying that would be completely accurate in somewhere like Louisville or somewhere else in a bigger city. But down here in these mountains, what he is saying doesn't apply here. It just doesn't apply.
So if you're a judge or a sheriff and you're committing bad acts, that's going to get a lot of attention, a lot of scrutiny, and you're going to be in a spotlight prosecuting the case, and you're not going to do anything that creates the impression that you're giving out favors, right? So
not around here.
You know, plus you also have here the state attorney generals involved in this case. They're actually part of the prosecution here.
Well, we heard all the interviews with the state's attorney general's detectives. So you guys can make that decision yourself, what you think or how true you think that is.
So to me, that lessens the likelihood that there's anything nefarious going on as far as not hearing much about the case. You know, that office is going to be a state office a bit removed from the locality here. And Ned will know more about all of that than I do. But, you know, in Tennessee, if you had the state attorney general involved, that would certainly create the appearance from a prosecution standpoint that you have an unbiased prosecution in place. So, and, you know, this case is still in a pretty early stage in circuit court as far as getting discovery going. I don't recall what the trial date is. Maybe another one of the guests knows that.
Gavin, do you know?
I actually don't know what it's scheduled for.
I don't know.
I don't think that it will make the schedule. I think it will be rescheduled.
Yeah.
It always is.
Probably.
Yeah. So Ned, back to you before I go back to Gavin here. Wouldn't law enforcement know there were cameras in the judge's chamber? There was another question. When did they install cameras? He had to know that there was a camera in there. He basically gave himself up. Are you curious about this? Do you know when cameras were installed and why?
According to the local newspaper, you know, we allege in our lawsuit that the sexual exploitation of Miss Atkins occurred in the chambers I understood the cameras were installed after the lawsuit, and from what I was reading in the local newspaper, it was because of that. But to be clear, it is really unusual to have cameras in the chambers of a judge in Kentucky. Where cameras usually are, they're obviously in every courtroom, and they're always in what's called the conference room. We have hearings. Why there were cameras in the judge's chambers is a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Although that was certainly, a prominent part of the lawsuit we filed, that the sex was occurring in the judge's chambers. And I'm sure the theory then was that that was a place where Fields knew he could have some privacy. And our lawsuit, generally says.
To Ned, what is the reason for omitting Judge Mullins from the initial lawsuit when the sexual assaults occurred in his chambers and he was the one who was engaged in the acts? So curious. Well, Judge Mullins wasn't the one that was engaged in the acts. But I ask the same question here. Why did they not include the judge if they're so convinced that this situation with Mickey had to be for a reason? If he was responding or reacting to something that was just so bad that the judge did, well, we have to know what the judge did before that his reaction to it is going to be evaluated. I don't understand that part.
Stines, the sheriff, knew or should have known there was all this
so they just went after Mickey
sexual
instead.
extortion of these females. One thing I want to add, to the extent that I have an agenda and I'm hoping there's some good come out of this unbelievable set of facts. What has dramatically changed in practicing criminal law in East Kentucky in my 43 years, if you walk into an Appalachian courtroom today,
pay attention.
You will see something you did not see 40 years ago. You will see women all charged with just about all of them charged with drug charges.
Does that not tell you something? If in the last 10, 15, 20 years, women have increased, the amount of women have increased so drastically, being charged with crimes and being put on, basically, you're trafficking them right through the courtroom. Basically, is what we're talking about here. And here in a minute, you're going to hear what they say about Ben Fields' sentence. They were satisfied with it, which I don't agree with. And I don't hear not one person push back against that either.
And what's happened is we've had a rapid expansion, which is a good thing, of drug courts and ankle bracelet programs. Unfortunately, the ankle bracelet programs, and especially, they're unsupervised. And I have no doubt that what happened to Miss Atkins, Miss Hill, and the other lady is not an isolated incident. Those women are easy prey for sexual exploitation.
Right.
Look what Fields did. And is there any doubt Fields did it? Well, once again, he pled guilty to multiple.
And you think Sabrina and Jennifer are the only ones? Are you serious?
Felonies.
No, they're not.
If you're in an ankle bracelet program, these women are poor, they're powerless. And the way the game is played in criminal courts, if you're a female defendant on drug court or ankle bracelet, you know that a simple phone call to the judge, hey, there's a violation of the ankle bracelet. Hey, she tested positive. They know they're back in jail. So it was really easy for Fields to get away for basically the rape and the sex charges he pled guilty to. And what we're hoping with, that as a result of all this publicity, that people who run these programs are sensitive to the fact that how easy it is for women, and it's actually happened to some men too, are so ripe for sexual exploitation, just the nature of who the criminal defendants are in Kentucky courts today. I represent dozens of them. They're women, typically charged with methamphetamine. And if you go to a Kentucky criminal court, it's like a drug court. Can we get them into drug court today? Can we get them on an ankle bracelet? Can we get them into rehab? That's what's happening in every Appalachian criminal court today, which frankly, I didn't see 42, 43 years ago when I started practicing.
He's right.
Yeah. This question has come up from Maya Sorensen, who is an attorney like yourself, Ned. It is to you. What is a reason for omitting Judge Mullins from the initial lawsuit when the essay occurred in his chambers and he was the one who was engaged in the acts, allegedly? Curious.
You know, when you file a lawsuit, you have to have a good faith belief. And Judge Mullins was not, we did not have credible evidence to make the accusation.
But why wasn't there an investigation done?
And in fairness to Judge Mullins, he's deceased. He's not here to defend himself. We thought the person who most likely knew and should have known would have been Stines. There are allegations in our civil suit. And once again, our civil suit is just our side. The other side defends us. That at one point, Jennifer Hill's boyfriend went to the sheriff's office in the morning and said, Fields is extorting my girlfriend for sex.
This was Jennifer Hill's boyfriend. Okay, he went into the sheriff's department and said, Ben Fields is extorting my girlfriend for schmecks.
Now, according to the affidavit of the witness, he claims he was pulled over later that day by Letcher deputy sheriffs, and it's sort of like an organized crime thing. They basically said, you need to shut up. Now,
I've heard that myself several times, but I had not found it in any interviews or anything, so I hadn't mentioned it yet. But now that Ned has mentioned it, we can talk about it, definitely. So, from what I've heard, it was a male and a female that were in a sheriff's deputy police car, and they pulled them over and threatened them to stay quiet and to quit talking.
That's an allegation in our lawsuit. The other side's free to decide that. But that's kind of the atmosphere we're talking about. And like I said, to me, one of the most egregious things, one of the moments I won't forget, during the 4-hour interview of Miss Atkins, when she was talking about Fields, she talked about how the quid pro quo was, well, if you don't want to pay the fee this month, not only are you going to continue to have sex with me, but I got this elderly gentleman who's interested in you. And he basically...
And here's the uncle.
Pimped her out. And I'll just... claims he was pulled over later that day by Letcher deputy sheriffs.
Listen to it again.
And it's sort of like an organized crime thing. They basically said, you need to shut up. Now, that's an allegation in our lawsuit. The other side's free to decide that. But that's kind of the atmosphere we're talking about. And like I said, to me, one of the most egregious things, one of the moments I won't forget, during the 4-hour interview of Miss Atkins, when she was talking about Fields, she talked about how the quid pro quo was, well, if you don't want to pay the fee this month, not only are you going to continue to have sex with me, but I got this elderly gentleman who's interested in you.
The uncle.
And he basically pimped her out. And I'll just never forget that moment during the 4-hour proffer where Miss Atkins just totally broke down, emotional. I call it the pimping part of the allegation. That's in the lawsuit. There was information came out in response to your viewer's question that Mullins may have been extorting sex from another woman defendant. Well, I don't represent her. And we basically had no evidence that we felt we had a good faith basis to accuse Mullins in the civil suit. By the way, the civil suit is still pending. It's been held up. And in terms of the criminal case, they just appointed a judge actually from the other side of the state. And one of the interesting things the general may want to comment on, Stines, an attorney, said, I don't want to change the venue. I want to be tried in the county, which I think is, I think that means we're going to see some sort of jury nullification, time to kill defense, which is unusual. I mean, I tried high-profile cases in Letcher County. They got that former case in Letcher cases. It's an isolated county. And for a criminal defendant who's on tape shooting the sheriff saying, I want to be tried in Letcher County, means we may be in for an interesting ride.
Yeah.
Hey, Joel, can I ask a couple follow-up questions?
I was just going to say, Mark and Gavin, feel free to jump in. Go right ahead.
Okay. First off,
before he says anything, I want to bring up a couple points. When we looked at all of the public records that we got back for Ben Fields's case, I was very surprised that they also didn't include more people in that lawsuit, because you had a very haphazard way of doing the ankle monitors. You had Ben Fields's own wife, who was the one who was writing and signing all of the receipts for the people that would come in and pay their ankle monitor. So many of them were just going in down at the jail because that's where she worked. So they would go into the jail to pay their weekly fee. And she was the one that was writing all of these receipts. It wasn't Ben, it was his wife. So I wonder why there were not more people involved in that lawsuit. Now, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so maybe that's why I don't know. But I just have a lot of questions about that kind of stuff.
I mean, Ned, I absolutely love you. That was fantastic. Mark, could you describe to us what a time to kill defense is? And then Ned, can you describe how Stines was acting oddly on the Monday before Judge Mullins was killed? And another quick question is, this whole county is like 5,000 people. It's 1,700 people in Whitesburg. This is a small place. Is that jail overcrowded due to, this drug epidemic? I know that's a lot of questions, but I'm just curious.
Let's go one at a time. So the first one was from Mark.
Yeah, what is a time to kill defense?
I'm gonna have to punt that to Ned. I'm not that familiar with that reference myself. I know that's a John Grisham reference.
Ned, what is it? Ned, what's the answer?
It's a John Grisham book and a movie where the African-American defendant is tried for killing the guy who raped his daughter. That's
Is that a newer version of To Kill a Mockingbird?
And it's the John Grisham book. It's really jury nullification.
No.
Yeah.
In the real world of criminal defense,
Unalive a Mockingbird.
there's an expression I've heard in Kentucky courts for 43 years.
Oh,
there's just some people who did something that they need killing. They've done something.
Yeah.
Ned, let me jump in there. I don't mean to interrupt. I try not to, but let me just ask the question point blank. I mean, you just heard Gavin say Whitesburg has 1,700 people. It's a county of about 5,000 people. It's a small place. People know what's going on. Have you heard whispers that it was some sort of untoward relationship between Judge Mullins and Sheriff Stines' 17-year-old daughter? To me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Can you corroborate or, not corroborate it one way or the other?
We live in a different world with social media. And I'm hesitant to repeat some of the outrageous allegations I've heard. But to me, what tells volumes, Stines does not want to change a venue. he killed a judge in a small county.
On camera.
Will there be a change of venue? And it may be that enough people have heard these outrageous rumors about Judge Mullins, and in fact, he's not here to defend himself. But how many times in history has a criminal defendant said, I want to be tried in my home county, when the evidence that what he did is just so clear, which tells me, and even goes back to the criminal defense lawyer gave an interview right after, I guess, the arraignment, where he said that my lawsuit was front and center. My lawsuit alleges, and I've said this before, and I don't back down, the powers that be turned that courthouse into a brothel. Going back to the pimping example I mentioned, the sex in the judge's chambers, and we know of at least 3 women. So
3.
I don't think, going back, is this an extreme emotional disturbance defense? Like I say, it's S10 to 20 at 85%. Stines is not looked at healthy. He can't serve. Let's say he gets 15 years. Some might consider that a light sentence for shooting a judge 8 times. I don't think the guy lives 12 years in a Kentucky penitentiary. Really? 85%. Gets 20 years, 17 years. I think he's got to go. He's got to swing for the fences, go for sort of a jury nullification defense. A jury nullification defense, I'm sure the general knows this, is don't pay too much attention to the law, but maybe Mullins was engaged in some outrageous conduct, that somehow this was justified. That defense.
But that has to be investigated. They can't just throw that out there and say, here it is, and then just skip over that. I feel like that's completely being skipped over here. There's nothing has come out against Mullins. There's a whole bunch of accusations and kind of whispers from the shadows, but you don't have a law enforcement investigation to find the facts. I feel like that's completely being skipped over here.
Works, by the way. I've had cases where the last murder case I tried, a juvenile shot his father, who basically the father was so abusive and outrageous and imprisoning and torturing everyone in the household. My defense was the 15-year-old did society a favor by finally stopping this outrageous abuse, and the prosecutor ended up dismissing the murder case.
Yeah. Ned, they've asked here, have either of the wives, Mickey Stines or Judge Mullins, I'm hearing that, COE, but have either of the wives come out and publicly made any comments since this has happened?
Need to ask Gavin that. I mean, I've read media reports and they're all over the place.
Yeah. Gavin, do we know?
Not that I've seen, and I need to subscribe to the Mountain Eagle and
I was just going to say, me too. General, to you, I just want to move it along a little bit here, but you just heard Ned say that Sheriff Stines wants to be, former sheriff, ex-sheriff, wants to be tried in Letcher County. Is that up to the discretion of the defendant? Like, if the state wants to change a venue, does the defendant legally have the right to say, no, I want to keep it here?
That's ultimately a call for the judge presiding over the case. The defense, and Ned's right, that is highly unusual. Typically, when you have a case with this much publicity locally, across the state, and even nationally, you're going to see and expect the defense to file a motion for change of venue to get the case out of that local county, or bring another jury in from somewhere else in the state, and try to mitigate and minimize the exposure to the news and social media, and try to make sure you have a fair and impartial jury, right? I mean, that's the goal, is to seat a fair and impartial jury. hear the case without any biases that would affect how they, how they vote on the case when it comes time to go back to the jury room and deliberate. So I would consider it to be highly unusual to hear what Ned is talking about, which is that the defendant wants to oppose, any move to change venue here. And typically that motion would come from the defense. It's pretty rare for the state to seek a change of venue. You might see that in that case. I think Ned's instincts here, based on his experience in Kentucky, are spot on. This sounds to me like the defense will swing for the fence. I still kind of stand by my theory that the defense wants to also shoot for a manslaughter. If the jury decides to convict him of something, the defense is going to say, well, the worst you should do is manslaughter here. This is not a murder. The judge was suffering from this emotional distress. But even better than that, you would try to get the jury, at least one member of the jury, to just ignore the law and vote with their gut, right? And you might even, in Tennessee, I've heard the term misdemeanor killing. Also heard the term, from the defense counsel, well, the defendant just deserved it. And sometimes juries will buy that. If you pound on the podium hard enough, and the judge gives you enough leeway to kind of slide that kind of argument in, all you need is one juror to either hang it or to vote not guilty and say, I just think that judge deserved to be killed, which is, that's a stretch to me, but we're going to have to wait and see what kind of facts come out here as this case makes its way to trial.
Yeah, again, I'm mystified that this much time has passed and we don't really know the answer yet. Inky Pinky, these questions are endless. Do you think Stines was trying to stop Mullins talking, or was he genuinely angry at being dragged into this by default, especially if he thought Mullins was somehow involved with his daughter? I mean, we don't know the answers, but we're trying to figure them out. Let me just walk us through, because we have some audio that I want to play. News Nation actually did some reporting on this, and I always like to give credit to other outlets. They reported that Sheriff Stines and his wife, quote unquote, had some sort of dispute the night before the judge was fatally shot. He actually, according to these reports, slept outside of the house that night. That's why you saw him out of uniform. You see him out of uniform in that still frame shot. There's a reporter for News Nation, a producer, who said that there's been some dispute from different sources about when it happened, but her sources are saying it was that night before the actual shooting, and he was in a great deal of distress. There was some sort of domestic dispute at home, and again, that's why he's in plain clothes, as you see here. If I can bring it up there, you see he's in plain clothes. So I'm going to bring that back down. And so let me play this. I'll be honest. I watched all this. I don't know which part of it, but let's watch this together. It is from News Nation. And here's some audio regarding this case.
Videotapes of some stuff in the judge's chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls' sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the video?
I've seen one partly, just him having sex with girls for to be able to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
You saw the video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins have sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know. Because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was the judge's chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
There you go. I'm going to play it one more time. This is Ned's client, correct, Ned? This is Sabrina Atkins at this deposition, I believe. Let's play it one more time, and then we'll get Ned's take and the other guest. Hang on one sec, Ned. I may have. Yeah, go ahead, Ned.
To be clear, this is an audio of a proffer Ms. Atkins gave to the Attorney General's office after the lawsuit was filed, but before Fields was indicted. The use of the word Ben, that's Ben Fields, the defendant. So this was an audio that the Attorney General's investigator recorded when he interviewed my client. And I said this was a proffer, and she was encouraged to say everything she could possibly think of that might be related. This did not occur during a court session.
Yeah. By the way, Ned, I got to ask you, this guy, Ben Fields, a deputy accused of the sex crime, and he was convicted. It happened in 2022. I think he was convicted later on. How is he out already? Isn't it supposed to be
what happened was after Fields was indicted, they venued the case to, they didn't venue the case. They had a special judge from Pike County. He ordered what's called a criminal mediation. And at the mediation, they agreed to, I think, a 7-year sentence, maybe a 6-year sentence, where he would serve 6 months in the county jail and be probated. And I believe there was a condition that he register as a sex offender. That's why he's out. It was a negotiated.
And he has made that registration. You can look
Yeah,
it up.
it was done in the context of just about every criminal case in Kentucky these days. The judges send us to what are called criminal mediations, and Miss Atkins consented to that sentence. What we were interested in, was that we did not want a no contest plea. We wanted Fields to admit he did what we accused him, and he actually pled guilty to allegations involving a client we didn't even represent, a third woman. And of course, one of the problems with the criminal case was Jennifer Hill, who I also represented. She died of a drug overdose in the interim.
There you go.
So that would have frustrated the case against Fields, which I think is one explanation of why the plea bargain was reached. I want to be clear. I've had my differences with the Kentucky Attorney General office, but generally when I file a civil rights complaint alleging some type of corruption, the Attorney General's office doesn't want to rush in and help me. But in this case, they did. Matt Easter was the investigator for the AG. That's his voice on the tape.
He's the one that we all kind of agree really did a crappy job on those interviews, especially with the women. And, I also wanted to say, I thought some people said, oh, well, he was supposed to act like he was Ben's big buddy in his interview. Well, that's not the only interview tactic that they have, or interrogation tactic that they have. And you can do that. You can act like their buddy without saying, oh, I've done things like this before too, man. I was really, really disappointed with Matt Easter and the way that he carried out these interviews. But that's just me. And I have a very different opinion on the 6-month sentence that Ben Fields got. I'm not happy with that. Ned just said that Sabrina consented to it. Well, I'm sure she probably consented to anything that you all said to her. She probably didn't have any choice but to consent to it. What was her option? Was she supposed to say no? Because then where was it going to go if she did say no? I don't know. Do you all think about it the same way I do, or do you see it the way that everybody else does, apparently, and thinks that 6 months is just plenty?
Indicted Mr. Fields and secured guilty pleas, and not a no contest plea. A guilty plea means he had to get up under oath and tell the judge, I did this.
And the civil lawsuit will go through because he got up and said, I did this. If he had given a no contest plea, then the civil suit wouldn't have been as much of a slam dunk.
I sexually extorted this woman in the judge's chambers. I did this. And actually, one of the counts he pled guilty to, which is interesting, if not funny, was perjury.
Funny?
The perjury was he swore out a warrant that claimed Sabrina Atkins bail jumped.
How is that funny? I don't think that's funny at all. See, one of the things, being a woman, one of the things I noticed with like this interview here, you've got 4 men here, and it's kind of like a, it's a man's circle. And, I don't think that they are as, I don't think that men in general are as maybe sensitive to the topic that we're talking about with this case. I don't think it's funny at all.
Well, she didn't bail jump. She said no more sex. So we charged her with bail jumping.
She was put back in jail.
So, the Attorney General office, I give them high marks for coming in and doing justice. People can argue he maybe got more time, maybe he should have been probated. But I don't want to question what's arrived at, especially at a mediation. Criminal mediations are a new thing, and I think they generally produce very just results.
Yeah. Ned, from Jason Truth, who's in here often,
I don't think
with the truth, with Judge Mullins now deceased, will his skeletons in the closet and others ever be found out? If he was in fact doing unsavory things, and that is just an accusation, nothing beyond that. Do you think, though, in a county like Letcher County, that it will eventually float to the surface?
Yeah, I would punt that question to his criminal defense lawyers. My speculation is that's where they're going, because they don't have anywhere else to go. And it may be that Stines just shot out the judge because the judge was going to report some corruption of Stines, and that it was a true egregious killing with a bad motive. Who knows? But my suspicion is that the defense lawyers are going to go with this a time to kill defense, that Mullins was engaged in some conduct that somehow justified him being shot 8 times.
I personally can't see any other reason. I mean, I can't see him getting that enraged over the Ben Fields, the deputy situation, unless he felt unusually embarrassed or humiliated. You never really know what's going on inside. Ida Shaw, JD, friend of the show, friend of ours, gifting 10 surviving the survivor memberships. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. I'm going to play this piece of sound one more time now that we've got the proper context. This is Ned's clients, Sabrina Atkins, who basically sort of blew the whistle on this deputy, but then said she saw the judge doing things, I believe, in his chamber, and other people potentially.
He does have some videotapes of his chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls, sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, just him having sex with girls for the video.
Who's having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
You saw the video.
Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins have sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know, because I don't know a lot of people from her.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was the judge's chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
And then again, Ned is quoted in this particular article. The question was posed, did it have anything to do with the shooting? I don't know, Ned Pillersdorf says, but he says you have to wonder. Now, he was acting really erratically. I'm going to play that sound in a moment. We've got some body cam. But, Ned, back to you. You said, you deposed him 3 days before this shooting, and you yourself said he was acting weird, acting unusually tense. Can you describe that a little bit more? In what sense?
Well, it was a civil deposition in my office. My co-counsel actually conducted it. And like I say, he had an unusual demeanor. Usually when you depose a public official accused of some sort of corruption, civil rights violations, they're talkative, they're combative. and he would be asked perfunctory questions, and it would like be long pauses. He was probably in my office 7 hours. The deposition only went on for 3 or 4 hours. Numerous breaks were taken, but I just thought he had an odd demeanor. It was a tense. It was, it was not a friendly deposition. We're saying, Sheriff, you basically allowed your bailiff to rape these women, sexually extort them, and you knew or should have known and did nothing about it. He denied that. So, but his demeanor was not what you would expect. And the best way I can explain it is, after they played the video of his initial appearance, it was the same odd demeanor. The judge would ask him direct, perfunctory questions, and there were these long pauses, which you would not expect from a judge from a sheriff who's used to appearing in court, used to interacting with judges.
But Mickey was not used to answering questions. Oh, my boy came home from basketball. Sorry, y'all. So he was not used to asking any questions, especially questions that he could incriminate himself with the answers, right? And I found it very telling that in that first court appearance that Ned is referring to here, the judge asked him about his property, and the judge asked him how much his home was worth, how much his property. He asked him how much his salary was. So he answered $115,000 this year, y'all. Sheriffs are making a whole lot of money. And then when he asked him about how much his home was worth, he said it was only worth $45,000 on the PVA. So at the PVA office, his property, his home, is only worth $45,000. Now, I've been trying to buy a home I've been trying to find one to buy for the last 2 years, and property has skyrocketed. I mean, it's just so high. And if he was making, and I'm just doing simple deduction here, okay, y'all? If he made $115,000, and this was what, his 6th year as sheriff, so he had built up quite an income for those several years. And he said he had property in Tennessee, but he still owed on it at the bank. His wife has a very, very high-ranking job at Double Quick. She works in like payroll or somewhere up there. She's one of the administrators or workers over there, and she's been there for years and years and years. So she makes a really good living, and it just strikes me as odd that his home would be listed at the PVA office for $45,000. I just find that very surprising.
There was something going on. And like I say, the prosecutor, the Commonwealth attorney assigned to the case, he actually called me up and asked me the same question you just asked me. What was his demeanor like during the deposition? And doubling back, I still want to be fair to the defendants in my civil case. Stines denied all the allegations. He said he was unaware Fields was doing any of this stuff. But I thought his demeanor was odd. And it was just not typical for a typical civil rights deposition. And I thought his appearance before the judge was just bizarre. It was just very strange. And it was just, you just don't see that. I mean, you occasionally see that from occasional criminal offenders, but not from a sheriff who's used to being in a courtroom.
Ned, by the way, I know you're new to our show, and hopefully we'll have you back soon. But we have the COE. She is the chief of everything. She's my wife, and I can hear your COE throwing you some words and correcting some of the things you're saying. I think that was her laughing. So tell the COE over there that we appreciate it. We appreciate that. And
Well,
I feel
you are correct. By the way, I'm also Mr. Janet Stumbo. Janet is the coal miner's daughter, who's the first woman elected to the Kentucky Supreme Court.
Wow.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to have our COE send your COE a COE t-shirt.
Okay.
I think that's the deal.
And she's quick to correct me, quick also.
Trust me, I know. So I would make a joke, but it's predominantly women that watch, so I will save myself the agony of all the hate mail. And Nancy here, Sheriff Stein. One of the questions, and there's a little bit more sound that I want to get through. General, to you, is this is a guy that in cold blood appears to have murdered a judge? How come the feds can't take on the case and change the venue if they want to?
Yeah, murder is primarily a state crime, and 99% of murders are prosecuted in state court, I would say. The feds usually are looking for what they call a federal nexus. Typically it involves a commerce clause, movement of items across state lines like drugs, carjacking because you're using stealing a car, moving across state lines, firearms violations. But when it comes to homicide, unless it's a carjacking, typically that's usually going to be left to the state. And the states typically have severe enough penalties for that crime that there's not much of what we call a federal interest left for them to devote the resources to it. Now, if it's a civil rights case, that could be different. I don't practice. I'm not a federal prosecutor, but I do interact with them. But this really strikes me as a state case. And the state of Kentucky has the resources, and they had the penalties here to probably handle this without any attempt by the feds to get involved.
Just a friendly reminder, if you appreciate the content here, we've got the best guests in all of true crime. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And we've got a Patreon page that really goes a long way. Any little bit helps us get...
I think that's about all he says. I don't remember him saying anything else, but let's see. Here's the body cam footage, or the dash cam. Let's see if it's any different, if it shows us anything better than the other did.
Oh, my guys.
I was asking why you done it. Was it over your family?
Come on now, guys. What are you doing?
I was just talking to you.
Just very quickly, I mean, it's sort of obvious, but that deputy is driving and he's asking Sheriff Stines, why'd you do it? And Sheriff Stines replies to him, what are you guys doing?
I'm just asking, was it something to do with your family or anything like that?
The trooper, after several minutes, tries to ask Stines some more questions.
Was it something to do with your family? Something happened. If something did happen, I mean, it'd be good to let us know. Why did you want to talk to your daughter while ago? Something did happen that, involved something, and they could help you when you go to trial and get a fair trial. Let us know kind of what's going on.
He said if you tell us what's going on, you'll go to trial and get a fair trial. So I guess the alternative is if you don't tell us, you're not going to get a fair trial.
So, General, to you, I mean, he's trying his best, this deputy, to try to figure out what was the motive. And you can hear.
And then here.
Shout out, by the way, to Annalie Finch, a friend of the show, who just gave us a super chat and him to another jail. At one point on the ride, we don't have this part. He's saying, "You're taking me to the forest. Why are you doing that?" Which is a little odd. And now he's talking about he feels like he's about to be poisoned, presumably with carbon monoxide. So he's a little out of it, to say the least.
Come on. I can't say it like this.
Slide sideways.
I can't. Come on now. Be fair to me.
We're being good to you, brother. You can stick your leg up in there.
Come on now, guys. Please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. Please.
You want to scoot on over a little bit to the left?
Come on now.
Try to scoot on over a little bit more. That way we don't hit you. Can you go a little bit farther? I just want to hit you with the door. Put your knee in there, my friend.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Bates. Hey, Bates. Can we loosen this up a little or give the window down?
I'm sorry.
Can we loosen this up a little? Be fair to me, man.
I got some air. I'll crack the window for you, but I can turn the air on back here. Okay?
Yeah. Be fair to me now.
I promise, man. Yeah, I promise.
God, please.
I promise. I'll tell you.
It's hot back here, man. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I'm the son of a psychiatrist and a social worker. I'm just talking head otherwise, pretty much an empty talking head. But Ned, what do you make of that? I mean, it sounds like he's having a bit of maybe a panic attack, an anxiety attack, or just as was otherwise described as being paranoid. It's definitely not quote unquote normal behavior. What do you make of this when you saw it for the first time?
I would assume it's just pure shock. I mean, he's in the custody of the Kentucky State Police. He's well familiar with the Kentucky State Police. And I think, suddenly he's in jail, charged with killing the judge. And you just go back to that video. Has that ever happened before, that we had a sheriff shoot a judge in a courthouse? This whole thing is just undescribable, inexplicable, and his behavior is, I think, odd. I don't know if that's the best word, but that video is certainly consistent with it. I don't even want to speculate some sort of panic attack or just daze or just a man in shock.
Yeah. Nancy Drew, the famous author here, has a follow-up question. Do one of your guests know if Sheriff Stines' family is supporting him in jail? Do you know, Ned, is the daughter there to see him? Is the wife going?
Okay. We'll go ahead and kick that off there because I don't think Ned is very familiar with any of that kind of the part of the case. But so what was I going to say? One of the things that I would like to point out is that Mickey didn't say anything that would hurt him, that could be used against him. Everything that he said that we saw, anything that he said that we were able to hear and see in these body cam and dash cam videos, it was more like the things that he was saying would back up a emotional disturbance, extreme emotional disturbance defense. He wasn't going on about his daughter. He wasn't going on about his wife. The only thing he was going on about was his own, out of fear for his own safety. Now, I want to address this two ways. So one way we could look at his behavior and the paranoia that he seems to be having. We can look at that as just unfounded paranoia, right? Some kind of mental illness or mental health situation is going on. Or we can look at it from a different perspective and think just how much corruption and danger is really behind this situation. Remember, you've still got 3 unsolved red rums of women who all lived within the same little geographic area that Ben Fields and all of his family lives in. The way that the mountains are the way that Letcher County is set out, you've got a whole bunch of little bitty towns that are just kind of scattered throughout Letcher County. And Whitco is the little town, the little area that the 3 unsolved red rums are in. And Ben Fields and his family all live in that area, as well as the fire chief that is his uncle. He also is in that fire department that he was the chief of, is also in that area up in Kings Creek, but it's out that direction. And so, I mean, you've got 2 different ways that you can look at it. You can look at it and think, oh, well, that's just irrational thought. Or is it real fear? Has Mickey got to a point, or did Mickey get to a point to where he couldn't trust anybody? Was he being thrown under the bus? And I also wanted to address something else. A lot of people have asked if Mickey's daughter was doing an internship with the judge at the courthouse. Now, I have no idea about that. I don't know how, if she was doing an internship, it would have to be through the high school, because she's a senior in high school. At least that's what I think. It would have to be through the high school. I know that Southeast Community College has an associate's program there. So you can get your applied science degree in law enforcement there at Southeast. And then they also have a program through Eastern Kentucky University where you can then transfer from your associates to your bachelor's, but you do it all on the Southeast campus. So I don't know her educational situation, but she's only 17. I don't know if they would have an internship for the courthouse as a senior in high school. Maybe the school has some program that they're working with one of the colleges. I don't know. That's completely possible. But my point to it all, if Mickey, or if she was doing an internship with the judge at the courthouse, then Mickey allowed that. Like, I've heard several people say, why would Mickey let his daughter go and do an internship with the judge if he knew that the judge was a dirty dog and was doing all of these bad things to women, right? Why would Mickey put his daughter in that position? I don't think he would. I've seen in the chat several people have said, that Mickey was a good dude and Mickey was a family man. He was. I had never heard of anything sexual with Mickey, but that was just me. I've heard other people say differently. I've heard other people allege that Mickey was the one, which I know Mickey was the one who initially did the house arrest program before he became the sheriff. So he was the one who was responsible for doing all of the ankle monitors for the house arrest. And there have been people who have said that Mickey was doing the same thing that allegedly that Ben was doing back when he did it. But I've never heard anybody say that. So I take that with a grain of salt. There's a whole lot that evidence is gonna be important here. That's kind of my point, where I think everybody is kind of glossing over the judge. I know there's a whole lot of people that don't like him. There's a whole lot of bad things that have been said, but we don't have anything concrete yet that we can point to and say, here we go. This corroborates everything that corroborates the rumors, or it corroborates these allegations, or, and that's really important. We need that piece of this puzzle. So, but like I said earlier, I'm also going to start looking at some of our officers, and I'm going to look back at their service records and see just how many complaints we can find, see if they've got any disciplinary actions on their records, see about their law enforcement certifications. So I'm going to start digging into that. If any of you guys find any of that stuff and you want to send it to me, please send it to me. But we're going to dig into this and just see. Because I have a friend, she went through treatment several years ago, and she had gotten herself mixed up with a boy, like lots of women do. And the boy got her in a bunch of trouble. The boy had a bunch of stuff in the car, and they got pulled over. They arrested both of them. The guy was driving and the girl was in the passenger side, and they found a bunch of rugs. Well, whenever they got it to the jail, or whenever they charged her, they ended up charging her with everything. The boy wrote a bunch of statements on people, and then he dipped out and ran. And when he ran, they just went ahead and took his charges that they had on him, and they put them all on her. And half of the stuff that she had in her possession, whenever they charged it, half of her stuff was missing. It wasn't even on the sheet where they confiscated it all. And one of the products that she had was switched. She knew what she had, but then whenever they charged them on the charging document, it was switched from one substance to a completely different substance. And half of the stuff that she had was gone. So, I mean, it ended up being good for her, because she ended up not having to face the full charges, and them switching out the substance ended up not being as bad of a criminal charge for her. But she knew what she had, and she knew what ended up being on that charging document, or for whatever they had confiscated from her. And this one police officer was the one who did it. So, and several people have, I have heard several people say that he had a problem, a substance abuse problem himself. So we're going to see. We're going to dig through some of this stuff and see what we can find, because it's just too much. It's just too much. Absolutely too much. All right, guys. Let me see. So I wanted to, I think I'm going to just, okay, one more thing. We're going to read this article. This was from the Mountain Eagle. Sheriff's office is selling 35 out-of-service pew-pews. December 25th, 2024. So this was just last week. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department will dispose of 35 retired pew-pews by selling them to a deputy who also holds a federal firearms license. The Letcher Fiscal Court approved of the sale at its regular December meeting. Now, this is the same Letcher Fiscal Court that had the scathing audit report that we just looked at the other day. While state law requires confiscated pew-pews that are not required to be returned to their owners to be sent to the Kentucky State Police for public auction, there's no such requirement for departmental pew-pews. LaShawna Frazier, who has handled finances for the Sheriff's Department for the past 3 sheriffs, told the fiscal court that the only requirement for disposing of the agency pew-pews is that they be sold to a licensed firearms dealer for fair market value. Now, I personally think that that is the female that surrendered her cell phone the day that this happened with Mickey and Judge. Now, I'm not sure about that, but I think that's the female that they were talking about who surrendered her phone. She's been there forever. She said they will be sold to Mikey Dingus, a retired Fleming Neon police chief who is currently working as a deputy sheriff. Money received for the pew-pews will be used to defray the cost of new duty pew-pews the department recently purchased. Some of the pew-pews being sold date back to early 2000s when retired Sheriff Danny Webb took office. The department has changed from 40 caliber Glocks to 9mm Glocks. The pew-pews being sold include 10 Glock 23 models, 10 Glock 27 models, 4 Glock 22 models, 5 .380 caliber Ruger LCP models, 138 special caliber Smith & Wesson model 642 revolver, and 4 Benelli 12 gauge shotguns, and 1 Remington 870. The department is also selling several vehicles. 2 years after a flood destroyed all but one car the Sheriff's Department owned, it now has too many cars. The department will be taking sealed bids on 7 department vehicles, including the 2013 Ford F-150 purchased under then Sheriff Danny Webb for use by him as his cruiser, and also used by former Sheriff Mickey Stines when he took office in January 2019. That vehicle was taken away by Kentucky State Police to be searched after Stines was arrested for pew-pewing District Judge Kevin Mullins. The other vehicles to be sold include 2 Chevrolet Impalas, 2 Dodge Chargers, and 2 Ford Explorers. The sales were 2 of several items approved by the fiscal court for Sheriff Bill Jones. The court accepted excess fees of $1,000 and then voted to loan it back to the Sheriff's Department. It also approved a $715,000 maximum for salaries for the coming calendar year and approved the department's request to borrow $110,000 from the state to begin the year. So there you go. The sheriff's office is getting itself in debt, it looks like. Ex-sheriff shows signs of distress in tape recording of journey to jail. This must be, I haven't been reading the paper much. January 9th. As then Sheriff Mickey Stines was taken to jail, he repeated phrases police officers hear daily as they place prisoners in the backs of their cars. You all gonna leave me in here and let me unalive of heat exhaustion, he said. I can't get in. These cuffs are way too tight, he said. Come on now. He says he can't. Oh, it's not going to let me read it. I didn't renew my subscription, y'all. That's okay. Anyway, that's what the beginning of the article says. But if you all want to go to the Mountain Eagle, you might be able to find it. I didn't renew my subscription. All right, y'all. Well, I'm going to jump off of here. We've been on here for 2 hours. Well, you all have a great rest of your night. Tomorrow, we're going to have a great, tomorrow I'm on guest showing or guest appearing, whatever. Going on 2 shows tomorrow night. So, I don't know if I'll probably jump on here after we get done with theirs just to touch base with everybody. So look for us tomorrow night. Okay, y'all? 7 o'clock, Surviving the Survivor. 9 o'clock, Court TV with Vinny. All right, y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your day, evening. Stay warm, stay blessed, and peace out, Girl Scout. Bye, honey.